Hey everyone, my name is Julian, and today we're gonna learn about my favorite format, Legacy, where people get to do this on the first turn, but instead opt to do this. Why is that? Legacy as a format was created in 2004. Every single card ever printed is legal in Legacy, except for a couple really busted cards and Earthcraft. For the most part, fast mana and strong combo enablers are banned in Legacy, which means that unlike Vintage, it plays out a lot like the other constructed formats, with aggressive, mid-range, combo and control decks readily available to suit whatever playstyle you prefer. Though the viability of those strategies and decks waxes and wanes as new cards enter the format. So what are the most common strategies in Legacy today? Delver of Secrets. Probably the most influential deck in Legacy right now is Timo Delver, also known as Rock Delver, or if you remember using these, Canadian Threshold. The core philosophy of the deck is to ride a cheap but powerful threat to victory by using only the most mana efficient tools to buy enough time for your Delver of Secrets, Strato Arcanists, Tarmogoyfs or Hooting Mandrills to do the job. Those tools include free spells like Force of Will, Daze, Submerge, but also Wasteland to slow down your opponent's mana development. So why is this the most influential deck in the format right now? Delver-based tempo strategies represent peak efficiency. They provide the general framework almost every other deck and format operates under, with regards to how expensive your spells can be, but also what your mana base can look like. So while you might wanna play a card like Spiritmonger, it makes a lot more sense to include more efficient cards like Icewind Codal, which is not only easier to resolve, it also helps a lot with stabilizing the boards against aggressive tempo strategies. Now speaking of efficient creatures, Etherwile. Etherwile is not only one of my favorite things to do in Legacy, it also represents one of the most powerful things to do. Maybe there's a correlation, I don't know. Not only does it allow to enter all your creatures at instant speed, it also makes them uncounterable and provides a really huge mana boost that adds up over time, trust me on that. Etherwile decks are usually full of awesome creatures with a wide variety of enters the battlefield abilities, such as Recruiter of the Guard, Skyclave Apparition, Palace Jailer, or Gilded Drake. An important aspect of those decks is they are perfectly functional without Etherwile. But do trust me, playing with Etherwile is probably one of the most exciting things you can do in all of Magic. Yeah, I know, we can put Griselbrand to play in the first turn. I'll get to that in a minute, okay? The most powerful decks in Legacy that use Etherwile are Death and Taxes, which is a mono-white creature deck that uses Stoneforge Mystic, Flicker Wisp, and Thalia, as well as Esperwile, which is basically Death and Taxes styled up to 11. If left alone for too long, Esperwile can really create some of the most powerful and near unbreakable board states in Legacy. It's insane what the deck is capable of, if left alone, and that's a thing that rarely happens in Legacy. On top of that, being a blue deck, Esperwile also gets to play Force of Will and Brainstorm. So we cannot talk about Legacy without mentioning the power of cantrips. Ponder, Preordain are fine, they're great cards, but Brainstorm is generally and without a doubt considered the most powerful card in the format. And despite its simple text, it actually has an insane amount of uses. Whether digging for lands on your turn, putting your miracle spells back on top of your library, hiding important spells in your hand from discard, or exchanging dead cards for fresh runs from your library, Brainstorm is the Swiss Army knife of cantrips in Legacy. Not only does it allow you to run fewer lands in your deck, it also enables you to include more awesome specialized cards, because the risk of getting those specialized cards stuck in your hand in a moment where you don't need them is greatly reduced by the power of Brainstorm and the Fetch Land. Awesome card, give it a try, I bet you will love it. Now, there's way too many different decks and strategies involving Brainstorm, but other than the aforementioned two decks, some of the most popular ones are the 4 and 5 color Snowco and Miracles control strategies, which without a doubt we're gonna see a ton of those in the tournament. Now, one of the big things about Legacy has always been it does not force you into playing Brainstorm. There is a wide variety of decks out there that are just as much a blast to play, if not more, that are also putting up great results. Decks like Elves, Hogak, Lance, Maverick all represent competitive non-blue playstyles, with the former two even being considered tier 1 decks in Legacy right now. So we'll see in this event whether they will live up to that kind of recognition. But Julian, don't they kill you on turn 1 in Legacy? Isn't that stuff super scary? Fear not, my friend. For while turn 1 kills are in fact a rare occurrence in Legacy, throughout its 16-year life cycle, they have never really been a dominant strategy. Fast combo decks do exist though, so depending on what you play, you might need to respect them more or less to a certain degree. The most common tools to use against these kinds of decks are cards like Force of Will, discard spells, hate bearers like Collector Oof, and at the very extreme also Mindbreak Trap. So depending on the matchup, you might still be in for an uphill battle, even after sideboarding. But the impact of fast kills and legacy is often quite exaggerated. So trust me when I tell you, don't fear them as much as you probably did before you watched this video. So Julian, what if we go a little bit slow on our combo decks, but we combine them with the resilience of Force of Will and the power of discard spells? Doomsday! I'm gonna say it, Doomsday is probably the single most flavorful card ever printed. You get to create your own end of world scenario brought about by a Murfolk Oracle. Like, what's not to love about that? That's just like, it's insane. By the way, this is another awesome thing about Legacy. Decks sometimes lie dormant for a while, they evolve into different kinds of decks, they adopt other tactics and strategies, and bam, new cards get printed. Deck is amazing again. Doomsday, one of the tier 1 decks in the format right now, was really put back onto the map with the printing of Thassa's Oracle. So if you can play the deck, because it's one of the more complicated decks I wanna say, you can create some serious awesome games with it. But Doomsday is just one of the many varieties of combo decks we have in Legacy. You can mill your opponent using Painter Servant and Grindstone. You can accomplish the same by using High Tide, playing a bunch of spells culminating in a Brain Freeze that takes out their entire library. You can create a 2020 Flying Avatar token using Vampire Hexmage and Dark Depth. And for those Rube Goldberg kind of players, there's Allure. And yet, with the decks I've introduced you to, we're barely even scratching the surface of Legacy. MTG Top 8 currently lists 58 different types of Legacy decks that have placed in a tournament over just the last 2 months. And why not all of those decks are always equally good at all times? People do play, enjoy, and compete with those decks. It's not rare in Legacy for somebody to adopt a deck, learn the ins and outs of it, and be successful with it for many, many years. Take a deck like Death in Texas, for example. The general consensus in the community recently has been that the deck had lost quite a bit of ground this year. Thing is, new card comes out, Skyclave Apparition, boom! 2 players in the top 8 of Eternal Weekend. What's not to love about that? Or take Rock Delver, which we talked about earlier. Just a year ago, it was considered one of the rarest type of Delver decks, and now it's number 1 again. Legacy is full of these comeback stories. Its gameplay is incredibly deep and varied, rewarding both strategic understanding of matchups as well as smart decision making on the spot. It's an incredible experience, and I really want to invite all of you to check it out, give it a try, and find your favorite deck in Legacy.